Hello everyone. Today we're gonna be talking about the insignias since a lot of people have been asking me about them. This is my normal insignia page, which I use most of the time. And people don't realize how much DPS they lose when they use the wrong insignias. So today we'll be talking about them and ranking like the really good ones compared to the worst ones. People don't realize how important it is to prioritize good insignias above bad insignias, even if you have a better grade above them. A mythical insignia should still rather take a purple insignia rather than a legendary bad one or bad mythical one. So most of the time you're gonna be using powerful with a yellow best defense, with a blue time breakers, and any other utility special insignias you want. And I especially made a sheet for this. So if you're interested to check it out sometime, they're here fully ranked out, all the ones you want to use. But what is important to focus on is that you want best defense all the time, because all the yellow ones are really bad, and that's the best defense one. Fawn armor is decent, but it can be really annoying when you want to reset a boss. All the other ones are really bad, unless you take one feather shield for either, and maybe the counter one if you use a lot of the time the counter. Red one you obviously want to use powerfuls all the time on normal dungeons, and if you go for Demon Spain rankings, you want to use different ones. So basically what I'm trying to use is to use as many powerfuls as you can out heal. Meaning, if you look at the stats here, my negative stat is minus 19% recovery, meaning 19% times 5, since it stacks up 5 times, is slightly below minus 100% recovery chance. Meaning, if this is fully stacked, I don't heal at all if it's at 100% minus recovery. So, if you, for example, take another powerful, this will be at minus 22% recovery times 5, so I won't heal at the boss anymore at all. That's why I use these powerfuls. If you're at a bit lower gear, you might want to use multiple powerfuls. You're probably gonna have some purple ones around. And you can probably maybe go nearly full ones. If you have blue ones, you're probably not gonna reach out fully. And you're just gonna replace them, and it's gonna look something like this. Maybe you can survive this. You need to know yourself how your class works. KFM at least you can heal a lot. All of KFM Sin, probably a lot of other classes, especially since the high DPS scales with attack, and the healing scales just as much. And exactly that's how you want to focus on it. And how you can find out if you can survive this much recovery loss is easy. You go through Mushin Tower, I do it easy. I go here up the stairs, I jump here, take some fall damage, I try to get low enough to test my combos and see if I can actually survive it. Since if I'm gonna go here to the training dummy, I will see on Wolf I barely heal at all, and on Titan stance if I use my X stance, I will always heal up to full because of the way Titan stance works. That's why I can use this much. I can probably use a slightly bit more until like 19.6% minus recovery. And the rest of the insignias we're gonna cover with off insignias. According to the sheet, you can see that powerful is the best one. I'm gonna put the sheet description into the description link. You can see after power through, we have momentum, maim, and devastation. Don't get me wrong, maim and devastations do have their strong points, but it really depends on your class. So, for me, for example, since I have a lot of hard AP scalings, I use momentums, and maim and devastation aren't really worth it that often. If I have, for example, someone to grab for me, I would use devastations. As you can see, it's a pretty decent buff. But you really shouldn't overestimate Devastation and Maim, because Devastation and Maim really in the end only give you additional damage. So if you look at it, Maim gives you additional damage, scaling according to your AP, or boss AP that is, and it's just each hit you do more damage. which is really not that impressive comparing it to the pure AP and Mystic you get. I get 100 AP nearly times 5 is 500 AP for free doing a full boss fight. And the momentum gives me 50 AP times 3 is 150 AP for free. So when I know I got someone else in my party grabbing, I will use this. So, for example, if you don't know if you survived that much, you can use a page like this if you know someone else is grabbing for you. If you don't have a grab or you are the grab, you can use momentums. Don't make the mistake to say, hey, we have a grab in the party, we will go full grab devastation page. Some classes can do that. For example, on Abyss, it's recommended because you do a lot of damage with the amounts of hits you do. So, for example, if you are an Astro, about KFM, who have a decent amount of hit rates, KFM even has a bit better hit rates on Wolf, but you have high burst, then you definitely want to use Powerfulls because you don't hit often enough for devastation to be worth it better than Powerfulls. Obviously, if you can't use any more Powerfulls, you will use devastations or maim, but maim is also not that broken, especially since the few break dungeons we have. Power Run, you could use it there, it's long enough for break, but it's not really worth it. And Albus, it's definitely not worth it there, even though the break is long enough. Yeti and Isol have way too short of a break to actually matter, especially since your damage get a hard scaling, but your additional damage doesn't. The additional damage is like maybe a few thousand damage each hit, which is in certain classes certainly enough, but on most classes it's not enough. I will get into this a bit later. So, talking about the blue insignias, you most of the time use time break for the breaks we just mentioned, which reset the cooldown is quite nice. You can use once a block, counter, parry for resetting your skills, but it rarely procs. And for break monster, if you want to add a little bit more break, but that's not significant amount. But sometimes you might want to use it. Otherwise, Spine Chill is pretty useless, Combat Medic is pretty useless. They're all pretty bad, so no need to worry about that much. And in the special ones, you always use Blood for Blood or Twilight and Twilight. Twilight is really nice for CCs, and Blood for Blood you always want to use unless you're dual blade. Then you have a risk to kill yourself. But a small little damage. If you're not confident in surviving, you should maybe not use it. It's some small damage, so it's nice. But you should definitely use the yellow ones for their best defense. It will help you a lot to survive. And the last one you can use like After Image, or you can also use Benediction if you have trouble surviving. But it's really inconsistent, 1 minute cooldown, so it's meh. And according to the dungeons, you should also have different pages. So, for example, in Sanctum of Masters, the Soul Dungeon with 30 floors, I obviously use Masters of Fertility with the block insignia or counter insignia for resetting cooldowns. And for Epiphany, aka Red Abyss, or Normal Abyss, we will be using the lefty one, obviously, since you block at 12 stacks. You get the after effect after you enter and drop your orb, and then you get like 3000 AP, which is quite significant on a boss fight. The alternative for this dungeon is you go page of full devastation, like this, which you rarely want to use, and only certain classes benefit from it. So we go for devastation, and it would look like this. And which classes use this? Only on Abyss, Gunner, Blade Master, and Sin. Because those are the classes that hit quick enough. They benefit quite heavily from it, but certain other classes really don't benefit at all from it. Same for Maim, don't make that mistake that you think it's a really good insignia that you have to use it in breakers. It's really not worth your time. By the time you burst a billion on Isla, for example, or on Yeti that is, for example, as well, you might burst with Powerfulls, gonna get 500 AP, maybe you burst 100 million more, for example, or alternatively you use main and then you do like 5 million more instead of 100 million more on your burst. It's really low, where hit rate really is only worth it on fast hitting classes. But for example, if I go for ISO, I go like this, because momentum might not necessarily be better, but it's up to you what you use. So according to Abyss one, use it like this. Yeti, you obviously use full fever pitch because nothing else is better. Look, you get 3 to 5,000 boss AP. It's quite significant. It's really important to keep your buff up. And for ISO, you also use the ISO Insignias specifically only on last phase. It triggers during win cut, which means 30%. You push to 70% phase, 40% phase, and on the last ISO, if you push to 30% last phase will proc, meaning that after the grab, after the break, you fly up. You want to change the insignias, you can sprint really quick, change it to this one. So usually I have this one, I start sprinting, and go to ISO. And then I have another 5,000 boss attack power during the last phase. But that's also really important. And then the one feather shield to resist the knockback of a wind you sometimes get. So, are there any other good insignias? Of course, for Berserker, for Dual-Blade, obviously. No other class benefits from it, really. And then you have, let me get into these ones. Retaliation, you'd never use it unless you play PvP, aka Battleground. Or maybe a Destroyer or a Warden, and then you can use it as an alternative for these slots I mentioned. But otherwise, you really don't need them unless maybe you're going for Shrouded. So, like for Sanctum of Masters, uh, Sanctum of Masters, like we just mentioned, we got this one with Master's Opportunity. Master's Retaliation is most of the time bad. It can work out in some classes, but I would still recommend this because you CC most of the time. And for Shrouded, this one, Mayul, I go full power through because the boss fight can be short enough that you don't heal at all, but you don't want to get hit. That's why I use Never Shackles, even Daredevil if you can survive it. No blood for blood, so I can survive it in time. Boss is quick enough. Otherwise, you go play around, maybe put some retaliations there, because there you will get hit a lot. So that might be an alternative, but otherwise you don't really use retaliation. Finishing Blow is the absolute worst insignia in the game. It has no use other maybe specifically on ISO, on Sin, on the last phase. Otherwise you don't use this anywhere, you can delete this anytime. And we already talked about these ones. And then the other ones are just off ones or maybe dungeon specific ones of ones you don't need anymore. Like Airdrum, Substratum, Trials, Shrine, which already got removed. So that's pretty much the overall. If you're still not sure, I'm gonna make a link in the description about this so you can look into it. But don't forget, uh, Blue Power Through is still better than a Mythical Berserker or Retaliation any day. And here you can see again the dungeon specific ones, and there's even a small comment for it. Uh, it really depends most of the time which insignias you do want to use. But don't be fooled by people who use multiple ones. I've seen enough people who put random momentums, random maims, devastations, retaliations, and finishing blows them. It's not worth it. Usually you want to go for one scheme, have a proper page, and then you're already gonna do quite a lot of more damage, survive way better, and have an easy time clearing dungeons. So I hope you learned from this video, and let me know what you think of it.